Happy New Year, guys. Welcome back from break. Today we're going to do our test review. We got the test on Wednesday and Thursday. This is a review of everything that we were covering right before we left for break. So it's basically multiplying, dividing, fractions, and decimals. The hardest part on these questions, quite frankly, is deciding which operation you're going to do. I think you guys have shown you understand how to do the actual math. So putting these two together in one test is the difficulty because you have to be able to discern which way to do it. Now, that being said, a major help for you guys on all these questions is going to be marking your text and for a lot of these, drawing some type of a diagram. The diagrams are going to help you understand and think about exactly what it is you're doing to help you understand. Finally, as a secondary point, remember that the test itself is going to be multiple choice. So when you get your answer, make sure that it makes sense. They're all word problems, mixed blessings. They are a little more difficult to set up, but it helps you to check and make sure that your answer actually makes sense in the real world. Number one, which of the following numbers are multiplied by 5.5 is equal to 1? In other words, what is the multiplicative inverse or reciprocal of 5.5? In order to figure that out, I take the 5.5. First thing I'm going to do is slam dunk. It means it's going to be 11 halves. The reciprocal of that would be 2 11ths. Very good on that one? Literally should be the easiest question on the test, as long as you understand what the concept is. Okay, number 2. Playing volleyball, Ralph drank 1/4 of a jug of water. If the jug held 48 fluid ounces of water, how much water did Ralph drink? This is actually, for me, an easy one to help visualize. Just draw the jug. Say, okay, he's drinking 1/4 of it. The whole thing is 48. So what would one section of that be? 12. Okay? It's literally just 1/4 times 48 over 1, 48 over 4, or 12. And don't forget your units. In this case, it was fluid ounces. So that's both a mathematical setup and a diagram. So you got both of those to help you out on that one. Number 3, Township is a measure of 55 square miles. How many square miles are in 5.5 townships? So they gave me 1, but then they said I have 5.5 of those. So what is that operation going to be? Multiplying, right? Because I need to figure out what 5.5 of those are. So I have 55 times 5.5. Well, I can't do that, so I need to slam dunk. Turn that into an improper fraction, and my whole number to get is a fraction. I just put it over 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Unfortunately, I don't have any reductions I can do on this one, so I'm just going to have to do the math. 11 times 5 is going to give me 605. 1 times 2 is 2. For those that don't see that, 55 times 11, it's going to be 55, 0, 55, 5, 10, 1, 6. Then actually do the division. 605 now being divided by 2. That's going to go 3 times. Don't forget, when it has a 0, 2 still has to go in there 0 times, right? Before I bring the next number down. Then 2 goes into 5 twice. Still not at 0, so I add my decimal and add another 0. Okay, sometimes easier said than done. Now it's going to go 5 times. I'm finally at 0, so I'm done. So it's 302 and 5/10, or I could have also just done this since I was doing it as a fraction, put it to 1 over 2. They're the same thing, and either answer would be, well, actually, it's going to be multiple choice just to understand that 302 and a half and 302 and 5/10 are the same thing. So 302 and a half square miles. Hope you guys can read that one okay. 302 and a half. Number 4. This is one I had the most questions on in class as we were working on these. I have 1 bag of flour. It contains 9 1/3 cups of flour. How many cakes can be made from 1 bag of flour if each cake made requires 1 3/4 cups? So there's my question, how many cakes can be made? So this is going to be what kind of a problem? Division, because I have the 1 bag, I'm dividing it into each recipe, right? So, but that 1 bag is 9 1/3 cups, so they already gave me that conversion factor. I'm dividing it into 1 3/4 cups. First step is going to be our slam dunks, turn these into improper fractions. So 27 and 1 is 28. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. Now's where I do my keep, change, flip. So 28 thirds, change to times, flip, multiply by the reciprocal. 1 reduction, I've got 7 and 28. I can divide both those by 7. 4 times 4 gives me 16. 3 times 1 is 3. That's not its simplest form because my numerator is bigger than my denominator. So 3 goes into 16 5 times with 1 left over. However, what was the actual question? How many cakes? Can I make 1/3 of a cake? No. So how many cakes can I make? 5. You can make 5 cakes. Now I will let you know on the test, it doesn't give you the exact mathematical one, so we're not going to try to trick you that way. What'll be confusing on the test for this one is the answer you get mathematically is not going to be the answer for the question because you have to use logic. Make sense? Okay. Number 5. Bailey baked a brownie. She decided to share 5/8 of it with her family. Her brother ate 2/5 of the portion meant for her family. What fraction of the total pan of brownies did her brother eat? This is another one that for me, a model actually helps out. So if I did my model, I had 5/8. So I'm going to do 8s for the first part. This is where I would do my colors. So I did color 5 of those. Now 2/5 is what he ate. So now my 5ths are going the other way. And he did 2 of those. So the total number that had 2 colors in there is this section right here. So 2 of the 5, which means 10 that had double colors. My whole thing is now 8 by 5, meaning 40, which I can now simplify by 10, gives me 1/4. Mathematically, what are we doing? Just multiplying. 5/8 times 2/5. Reductions, I got 5s I can take out. I can divide these by 2. Gives me 1 and 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. So whether I did the model or the actual mathematics on that, her brother ate 1/4 of the brownies. I hope he had a lot of milk. Any questions on anything on the first page? No questions? Okay, good. Turn the page. Page 2. Matt is filling containers of rice. Each container holds a 1/4 kilogram of rice. If Matt has 12 kilograms of rice, how many containers can he fill? There's our question. So again, here's where we got to think. Am I dividing the rice into the containers or the containers into the rice? Rice into the containers, right? So I'm taking the 12 kilograms of rice, I'm dividing it into the containers, which each take 1/4. Because I have a whole number, in order to divide it into a fraction, I make it an improper fraction, and then I keep, change, flip. Keep the 12, change, multiply, flip, multiply by the inverse. No reductions because it's 2 1s on the bottom. 12 times 4 is 48. 1 times 1 is 1. That simplifies to 48 containers can be filled. Well, each one only takes a fourth of it, so yeah. Hopefully. Yeah, you just buy the Glad containers. They're pretty cheap. Number 7 says a strip of ribbon that is 3/4 of a yard of ribbon. She wants to cut the strip into pieces that are 3/8 of a yard. How many 3/8 pieces can she make from a 3/4 strip of ribbon? So again, our mathematical question on this one's really important. Cut already tells me I'm going to be doing what operation? Dividing. So then the big question is, am I dividing 3/4 by 3/8 or the 3/8 into 3/4? 3/4, dividing it into 3/8 strips. So I'm taking the 3/4, dividing it into 3/8 strips. Now I do my just keep, change, flip, keep the 3/4, change it to time, multiply by the reciprocal, 8/3. I have a reduction there on 3's. I have a reduction here. I can divide by 4. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Simplifies down to 2 strips can be cut. Everyone doing okay so far? Good. Let's go to number 8. Mrs. Rodriguez making name tags for each of the 15 choir members and 40 orchestra members. The materials for each name tag cost 64 cents. What is the total cost of the materials? So I have a couple different ways I can do this. Fortunately, the materials all, all cost the same amount. So I could just take and add the numbers of she's doing. So I can do the 15 plus the 40. Gives me 55. And then I multiply that by the total cost. So 55 times 64 cents. Remember, when we multiply by decimals, all I do is count my decimals to start. And then now I'm going to do is multiply 55 times 64. So 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 2 is 22. I've taken care of the fourths. I put my placeholder in. 6 times 5 is 30. Carry the 3. 30 plus the 3 is 33. Now make sure your handwriting is neat, that you can line up all of your rows and add straight down. Once I've added in all the numbers, I go back to my marker and say I need 2 decimal places. So starting from the right, I move. I put 2 decimal places into my answer. So the total cost is $35.20. Remember that in U.S. money, we have 2 decimal places. Okay, number 9. Becca bought 2.5 pounds of grapes and paid $4.25. What was the cost per? What does per mean? For each, or 1 pound of the grapes. So is this going to be a multiplying or a dividing question? Dividing, right? So I'm going to have my $4.25 divided into 2.5 pounds. Remember when we were doing this? We had to get our denominator without a decimal, right? So if I got 2 5/10, how do I make it into a decimal and get rid of the decimal? Multiply by 10. Anything I do on the bottom, I do on the top as well. So that gives me 42.50 divided by 25. Now we're just doing multi-digit division. So 42.50 divided by 25. When we were doing multi-digit division, what was the first thing we did? We taught you guys how to build a... the table. Okay? The algorithm. So by 25, so it should be an easy one to build. 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200, 225. So now the math is easy, right? 25 goes into 42 just once. So I subtract my 25. Can I do 2 minus 5? Wait, Lonnie. Can I do 2 minus 5? So I have to do what? Borrow. I don't think any of these kids are awake this morning. 3 minus 2 is 1. My decimal goes straight up. Really? I had to get up at 4:55. 175. How much sleep did I get? I got about 5.5 hours last night. So 175, that's going to be 7 times. This is where my table comes in handy. Makes that math very easy. So now I'm down to 0. Again, because it's money, we're going to do 2 decimal places. So each pound is $1.70. Don't forget to put your units. I think we can do one more before lunch here. Okay, grocery store is selling steak for $9.30 per, that's per one, right, pound. What would be the cost of 3 6/10 pounds of steak? So what kind of problem is this? Multiply. This is actually the opposite of what we just did. So in this one, I have the $9.30, and I'm multiplying by 3 6/10 pounds. Again, count out my decimal places. I've got 3 of them, 2 on the top, 1 on the bottom. Now I'm just multiplying 930 times 36. 6 times 0. 6 times 3 is 18. 9 is 54, plus the 1 is 55. I'm not done with that, so I put my placeholder. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 9 is 27. Add up all my columns. Here's where I hope your handwriting is neat so that you can actually keep track of what you need to do. And the final step, I need to put 3 decimal places back into my answer. So the total cost is $33.48. Any questions on this page? Okay, we're on page 3 now. Susie rides her bike at a pace of 16 2/3. Guys, please stop talking. She's riding at 16 2/3 miles per hour. Per means what? 1 per hour. If Susie rode her bike for 2 hours, how many miles did she ride? There's our question. So this is a multiplying, right? 16 2/3 in 1 hour, but instead I'm doing it for 2 hours. So we'd have to do our slam dunk here. It's going to, 3 times 16 is 48, plus 2 is 50 over 3. The 2 we just put over 1 to make it an improper fraction. No reductions that we can do. 50 times 2 is 100. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 is going to go into 133 times with 1 left over. So 33 1/3 miles is what she rode. Lonnie, you getting this down?
Having a rough day.
Yeah, she is. Okay, each child at a daycare gets 4/5 cup of juice every morning. If Miss Alice has 10 cups of juice, how many children can she give juice to? So this is going to be what kind of a problem? Division, right? Because I've got 10 cups and I'm dividing it between each of the kids. So the 10 cups is being divided into 4/5 of a cup per child. Turn that into a whole number by putting it over 1. Then we do our keep, change, flip. Keep the 10, change it to times, multiply by the inverse, 5 over 4. I have 1 reduction. I can divide by 2. Then I do 5 times 5 is 25. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 goes into 25 12 times with 1 left over. So again, go back to our question. How many children can she give juice? 12 children, right? Because I can't give a half child a juice because there aren't any half children out there. If you've got a half of a child at a daycare, you're going to jail. So if you have half of a child at daycare, you're going to jail. Because you've killed someone if there's only half of them left. Guys, come back in. Okay, George dug a trench that is 10 feet long. He needs the trench to be 4 1/4 times this length. How long will the trench be? The problem, if you'll mark your text, actually gives it to you. What am I doing in this case? Multiplying 10 times 4 1/4. So again, we have to make them into improper fractions. The whole number, I just put a 1. The mixed number, I slam dunk. So 10 over 1 times 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 is 17. I have one reduction I can do by 2, gives me a 2 and a 5. So 17 times 5 gives me 85. That's going to be 85 over 2. 2 is going to go into 8 4 times. Goes into 5 twice with 1 left over. So 42 and a half feet in total. Number 14, he's a farmer. 5/12 of his land is corn. 1/4 of the corn is white corn. What fraction is white corn? This is one, for me, again, a model helps out a little bit on this one. In this case, I've got 5/12 of the land. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Good. So I've got 5 of them here that are corn. I've got 1/4 of it. So in other words, I'm going this way. 1/4 of it is white corn. So that means that only these 5 spots are double shaded. And I'm now up to 48 total spots. The 5/48. You do it mathematically, it's just 5/12 times the 1/4. 5 times 1 is 5. 12 times 4 is 48. So 5/48 is white corn. Does that make sense that there would be less white corn than the total? Yeah, because a portion of the portion means that I have a much smaller one. Number 15, I'll be honest with you guys, this is probably the most difficult question on the test because of how it is worded. You have to be careful. So Mother Giraffe is 13 5/8 feet tall. She is 4 times taller than her baby giraffe. How tall is her baby giraffe? So what are we doing in this one? Dividing. So even though it says 4 times, you have to read the question. She is 4 times the baby, but I want the baby, meaning I need to do the opposite, which is divide. So I'm taking my 13 5/8, dividing by 4. So we have to, again, do our slam dunk. The 4 goes over 1. So 8 times 13 gives me 104. Excuse me. Gives me 104. And here's another one. A lot of students, when they are doing the slam dunk, they forget to keep your denominator. They make that a 1. No. My denominator stays what it is. So keep, divided by 4 over 1. Now we do our keep, change, flip. Oh, I forgot to add the 5. Sorry. It should be 109. It says 104 plus the 5. So 109 over 8, change, times, multiplied by the inverse, 1 over 4. There aren't any reductions I can actually do in this case. So that's going to give me 109 divided by 32. So that one we just have to do the math. 109 divided by 32. It's going to go 3 times. Gives me a 96. 13 left over. Because it's a fraction, we don't have to do the decimal piece. We can just keep that as a fraction. So the baby is 3, and 13 30-seconds feet tall. Now, here's another big hint, guys. If you do this incorrectly, if you said times and you actually multiplied it, you'd get an answer roughly like 43 and something at some fraction. Would it make sense that the mother is 13 and the baby is 43? No. So that should tell you automatically you've made a math error. I will give you a hint. The 43 is one of your test options. It might be. I'm just doing rough numbers. Okay? So just make sure your answers make sense. Going to go to our last page. Okay, Cindy made a banner for the football game. It's 11 feet long. Betsy made a banner that was 6/10 times as long as Cindy's banner. How long was Betsy's banner? What am I going to do? Multiply. I mean, it literally, again, tells you 0.6 times. 11 times 6/10. I have one decimal place. 6 times 11 is 66. I need to put one decimal place back in my answer. So Betsy's banner is 6 6/10 feet. Richard bought 22 4/10 pounds of potting soil and 45 4/10 pounds of sand. Richard got them on sale for 75 cents per means what? 1 pound. How much did he spend? So I have 2 options on this one. I could do each of those individual pieces times the 75 cents, or because they are the same cost, I can go ahead and add them all together. Here's where it's important to remember that my adding rules are different than my multiplying or dividing rules. To add, I line up my decimal places, and then I just add up straight down on the columns. 4 and 4 is 8. My decimal comes straight down. 2 and 5 is 7. 2 and 4 is 6. I have 67 8/10 total pounds of sand and soil. And then I multiply the 67 8/10 by the 75 cents. Remember, the first thing I need to do, count up my total decimal places. In this case, I've got 3. Now I forget that it's decimal. I'm multiplying 678 by 75. So 5 times 8 is 40. 35 and 4 gives me 39. 30 and 3. 5's done, so I can get rid of that. Put in my placeholder for the 7. 7 times 8 is 56. 49 and 5 is 54. 42 and 5 is 47. Make sure your handwriting is neat so that you can keep track of all of your columns. 10 and a 1. Once I have the answer, now I go back. I say I had 3 decimal places. I need to put 3 decimal places in my answer. So make sure your answer has 3 decimal places. So what did he spend? Richard spent, good, $50.85. Number 18. During 2002, Rachel ran 8 cross-country races. The total distance she ran was 19 2/10 miles. Each race was the same distance. How many miles did she run in each race? So a few different ways to think of this one. You could set it up as a proportion. I have 8 races and 19 2/10 miles. and I want to find out what it is in one race. How do I go from 8 to 1? Divide by 8. So I need to do the same to the 19 and 2/10. So 19 and 2/10 divided by 8. Do I need to do anything to the decimal? No, because it's on the inside. I only worry about the decimals when it's in the divisor on the outside. 8 goes into 19 twice. My decimal comes straight up into my answer from where it is inside. 8 goes into 32 4 times. So we end up with 2 and 4/10. So each race was 2 and 4/10 miles. And we have 19. Last week, a gallon of gas cost $2.90. Donald put 13 and 3/10 gallons of gas in his car. How much did he spend? So this is straight up multiplying, right? So I have 13 and 3/10 gallons times the $2.90. Again, because I'm multiplying, I don't have to line up my decimal places on this one, right? Instead, I just count. I have 1 in my first number, 2 in my second number. It gives me a total of 3 decimal places. Now I'm just multiplying 133 times 290. So 0 times 3, well, actually 0 times everything is going to be zeros. So I'm done with that. So I put a placeholder for my 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 and 2 is 29. 9 plus 2 is 11. Done with the 9, so I can get rid of that one. Now I'm in my third one, so I have 2 placeholders. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. And I just add up my columns. Again, neat handwriting, extremely important. 15, 7, 8. And once I have all the numbers, I go back and I said, okay, I've got 3 decimal places. I put 3 decimal places in my answer. So Donald spent $38.57. There we go. See, it's not just you that the board hates. Last problem. Jamie is painting her house. Each room takes a half liter of paint. If Jamie has 8 liters of paint, how many rooms can she paint? So this is going to be a multiplying or dividing problem.
Multiplication.
How did you do it as multiplication?
I just did 8 times 2.
Why did you do 8 times 2?
Because it takes 1/2 liter of paint to do 1 room. Then that means 2 rooms for 1 liter of paint.
Because it's 8 divided by half, which would be the same as 8 multiplied by the reciprocal, 2 over 1. So it actually is a division problem. But because of the way you logically thought it out, that does make sense. I can paint 2 rooms for every one. Yep. So that also would work. So 16 rooms can be painted. Okay, again, any questions on anything that we covered on the test? Again, this is just like your actual test, guys. The only difference being your actual test is going to be multiple choice. So just a few general tips. Once again, for each of these problems, take your time. You're going to have the full period to be able to do your test. Make sure that you mark your text, work through the problem, but most importantly, guys, check your answer against the actual information. Make sure that the answer you get makes sense given what the question was asking. If you'll double check that, this should be a really easy test for you. It's straight up just multiplying and dividing. Okay?